Am I being blacklisted by Harley Davidson? Catch you inside.
RevelatorAlf.
Hello, welcome to RevelatorAlf. I hope you're all well. So this video is going to be a little bit of an inquiry into the world of Harley Davidson and the dealerships, and whether people like me are being blacklisted by them. And let me explain. So a couple of years ago, when I first got the heroic Harley, the Sport Glide, I did approach quite a few dealerships in my local area to say, look, I'm really into the bike. I really like producing content for it. What about that I come into some dealerships and interview a few people and explain, behind the scenes kinds of things. So I did that with one particular dealership, and I made a couple of videos, all really good. So the next step was I said, well, okay, let's look at some of the bikes, kind of ride some of the bikes. And they're like, yeah, okay. So we said, okay, well, when you got these new bikes in, give us a call and maybe we'll do something with it. Great. But then it all changed. It changed for no real reason. The guy who I was actually dealing with left. Then I spoke to somebody else and they seemed really enthusiastic. And then all of a sudden I got an email back saying, no, we want to go in a different direction. We want to do it all in-house. Fine. Then I got a quick conversation with somebody from another dealership, and they were only kind of willing to let somebody onto their bikes if they were going to be very enthusiastic and promote the brand. I get that, but that's not really what I'm about. I'm more about an independent viewpoint of any bike, whether it's Harley Davidson, BMW, Kawasaki. So I didn't quite like that aspect of it. So I didn't really get into the whole dealership thing. I didn't really get into reviewing Harley Davidson motorcycles or any other brand of motorcycle, because I felt that it wouldn't be an independent review. And for me, if you're going to review a motorcycle, you need to ride it for a couple of thousand miles. You need to have been with it for 6 months, for a year, to really give you a good analysis of its pros and its cons, where it works, where it doesn't. That for me is a review. So we have a situation here in the UK, and I'm not going to mention any names, but a dealership I know, they will approach a YouTuber, let's say, who's had nothing to do with Harley Davidsons, never really liked them from the past, but because they've got quite a few subscribers, all of a sudden they ask them to do reviews of their Harley Davidsons. And it's fine. There's no issue in that per se, but it lacks a bit of authenticity, because that they don't really care for Harley Davidson motorcycles, and it's a bit of a whitewash of a review. It's kind of giving their impressions. Reviews shouldn't be called reviews. They should be called first impressions. And yes, they're giving them the first impressions, and they're being quite complimentary all the time, because that these people, these YouTubers, when they go to the dealerships to get a bike to review, let's say, well, they're also thinking about the next bike that they want to review. So if they give a really bad first impression of a particular bike and they slate it and they say it's absolutely rubbish, what do you think is going to happen the next time? Another bike comes into the dealership, and that dealership's going to say, hold on a minute, you slated the last bike, that's going to affect our sales, we're not going to give you another bike. So they're in this tricky ground here, YouTubers, where they've got to be kind of complimentary and they can't really be that independent. So this is where I get really confused by Harley Davidson in particular, because they tend to get YouTubers involved quite a lot, especially in the United States. They will get YouTubers who may ride Harley Davidsons, may not, and they put them on bikes with no experience of being on those bikes at all. So the Pan America was a great example. They took a whole group of Harley Davidson riders and non-Harley Davidson riders, let's say, but who've had never any off-road experience, had no adventure bike experience, let's say, or very limited. And all of a sudden they said, yeah, come and review these bikes, come and try them out. Well, what was the benefit of that? Why weren't they brave enough to actually say, okay, let's invite a whole load of BMW GS riders or KTM riders and to come and try this bike, come and review this bike, give you, the viewer, a really good independent review of this bike. But they can't do that because they're not brave enough to do that. They want people who they can mold, who they can dictate to a little bit. And also they need to have people who are Harley Davidson sympathizers as well. They also need YouTubers, let's say, who want to continue building their brand, building their channel. So they say, well, actually, you know, come on to this bike here and you'll open yourself to another audience of Harley Davidson riders. You see where I'm going with this? It kind of lacks a little bit of integrity for me. So I'll give you another example. So you got one of the YouTubers from Australia. I'm sure if you into Harley Davidsons, or not even not, you know, you might know, you know, $1 Million Bogan, right? And he rides his bikes all over the place and, you know, puts them in dirt and all sorts of stuff. He gets slated for it, but also he gets lots of compliments for it as well. But he doesn't get a lot of association with corporate Harley Davidson. Well, not to my knowledge anyway. So, you know, he has a relationship with a local dealership and he might get to ride the odd bike here and there, but for the most part, you know, it's all his own money and he's paying for everything and he's just showing his adventures. Well, the question is, well, why aren't corporate Harley Davidson asking a guy like that to review their bikes, or, you know, to give an honest opinion? Why? Maybe because he's quite abrasive, or he's really gives his own opinion, which we want to hear, but maybe corporate Harley Davidson or the dealership don't want to hear. And that's where, you know, we're missing something here as a viewer. So when I've approached Harley Davidson corporate in the past, here for Europe, that is, I've said, look, you got a new bike, you know, let us know when it's coming in. And, you know, is there a chance that you could, you know, is there an open day that you could invite us to? Or, you know, could you send us a bike to review or to have a look at or to give you an independent review? And they just didn't want to know. They did not want to know. They had no interest in using me at all, or I should say any other YouTuber as well. They just seem to say, no, we're not interested. When I went to the shows, okay, so a couple of the shows last year, I approached them about, you know, doing something at the shows as well. Nothing, no response, not interested at all. And I thought, well, hold on, are you missing a trick or am I missing a trick? Is there something not quite right here? So either at a dealership level, sometimes there isn't quite the right connection. And, you know, us as YouTubers, you know, yes, we want to build our channels, let's say, but you've got to be very careful about how you're trying to build your channel. Are you building it on independence and integrity, or are you building it that you just want to build your channel and you just want to please everybody and you just want to get the latest brand or the latest gizmo or the latest bike, you know, on your channel so you can review it and say, hey, there's another bit of content for you? For me, that doesn't work. For me, that's not giving you, the viewer, a realistic portrayal of something. I've owned that bike for 3 years, put 18,000 miles on it. I can give you the pros and the cons of that bike. I can tell you where it works, where it doesn't, where it's fantastic and where it falls short. That is a review. That is a bike that I've worked on. That's a bike that I've found little fixes for, all that sort of stuff. So that's me showing some insight and giving you an independent review of a bike that I own. So if I just go and get a bike from a dealership, one, I've got to be really careful that I don't piss off the dealership. And the other thing is that I've also got to be thinking of the next bike I want to review as well. And also, it's a very first impression. So you kind of open yourself up to getting it completely wrong and not really knowing the bike at all. So that's where these review channels, they're on dodgy ground for me. They're not really getting the support from the corporate manufacturers. They're not really getting the real independent push from the dealerships. Now, I know some dealerships around the world, are very much pro, come in, ride this bike and say whatever you want about it because it's your impression. But those are very few and far between. Most are very conscious that they think they can probably do a better job themselves, or that they're trying to control the narrative of whatever product they're trying to sell. So whenever I look at a review from any channel, it's kind of a little bit, well, it's not really a review, it's a first impression, and it's only their impression of it, and they're giving you information. You know, I saw the latest one from some reviewers or some YouTubers in the United States for the Harley Davidson Nightster, which I don't like, and I think I've given my reasons why I don't like it, or I don't like the way they've promoted it. And you know, all the problems with that bike, the YouTubers are totally ignoring it. They are totally ignoring it. The ones where you think, well, you haven't said anything about that, or you haven't said anything about that. Why not? Why haven't you said anything about that? That's the question, because we all see it. We all see it. Why aren't you showing it? Why aren't you talking about it? The reason is because their hands are tied a little bit, I dare say, by corporate Harley Davidson or by the dealership themselves, and they're thinking about the next time they have to review a bike. So that's why, can you really trust a review from somebody who's just got a bike for a day? I don't think so. And that's the problem with this whole setup. You know, there isn't really the ability to go to a manufacturer from us as independent YouTubers and say, look, we'll review this for you, but we'll give you an independent review, because they don't want us to do that, first of all. And also, we haven't got the power to do that. Now, the only time that you can get some kind of independent impression is the way I tried to do it, is that when I was genuinely interested in buying a bike for myself, and I would go to a dealership, whatever it was, a BMW, Triumph, Harley Davidson, and say, look, I want to try this bike. And I didn't tell them that I have the cameras, and I go away, put the cameras on, and then I do a review, not only for myself so I could remember later what I thought of the bike, but also to bring that bit of content to you. So that was like an independent review, an independent first impression. I wasn't beholden to the dealership, I wasn't beholden to any corporate manufacturer. That's just me giving my independent review. And you know what? If they caught me doing it, I didn't care. I didn't care that, you know, they caught me doing it. And if they said, you're never going to ride one of our bikes again, I said, so what? You know, I was only interested in that bike. If you don't want me to ride another bike, that's entirely up to you. So I think for YouTubers like me, or for other YouTubers who are a lot bigger, who don't play the corporate line, who always want to try and retain their independence, we are going to be blacklisted by corporate entities like Harley Davidson, or you know, Kawasaki or Triumph, or whoever, you know, they're gonna, when I say blacklist, probably that's the wrong word, but they're not gonna look at us, they're not gonna choose us first over a more compliant YouTuber, let's say, because I suppose we're too much of a risk. We're too much of a risk of giving our independent review and our truthful review. I mean, can you imagine them calling something like $1 Million Bogan and saying, hey, look, come and give your independent review, warts and all of this bike? It's not really going to happen. Sometimes it will at a local dealership level, but not at a corporate level. And this is where, you know, we're going to struggle, and you as the viewer are going to struggle as well. Unless you're really, really huge in the market. And then it kind of flips a little bit, because then you're saying, well, if you're a really big YouTuber, let's say you've got 1 million subscribers, 2 million subscribers, 10 million subscribers, and the manufacturer, they want to come to you and say, look, we've got this bike, you want to review it, and you're going to say, sure, I'll review it, but I'm not doing it for free. You know, you've got to pay me just to have a look at it. There's going to be a financial incentive because your voice is influential now, you see, and that's the way it works. All of a sudden you get to a point where we say, well, actually, I don't need to have my begging bowl out to you. Now it's kind of roles have reversed a little bit, and you're still not getting an independent review because there's been some kind of financial arrangement there. So all of a sudden, again, you get to a certain point as a YouTuber, as an influencer, let's say, and there lacks that integrity because, you know, there is a commercial relationship there. So I don't know what the answer is to this. I don't know what the answer is for you as the viewer. You know, who do you trust? Do you trust somebody like me who's always striving to give you independent opinions, independent views, independent reviews or first impressions? Or do you trust somebody who's just giving you a review of this bike, of an X bike, of an X bike? 1 week it's a Honda, next week it's a Harley, next week it's a Yamaha, whatever it is. Or, you know, you're getting somebody who's just new to riding and they're being invited by corporate because they're going to try and get them on a bike that they've got no experience on, and they're going to try and give their impressions of. And it just comes off as being really pretty lame, I've got to say. But there we go, that's me. Let us know your thoughts. So, you know, I thought I'd talk about this morning because I've seen quite a few of these things over the last year especially, and I'm thinking it really has got to a stage it's got quite pathetic for me anyway, you know. And whether I'm blacklisted or not from any kind of manufacturer, it doesn't really bother me. It really doesn't. What does bother me though is that you as the viewer are not getting the content that I think you deserve, and the independent reviews or first impressions that I really think you deserve, and one that we as independent YouTubers, let's say, are not allowed to give you because we just won't have access to the machines if we start slating them or giving our truthful impressions. Anyway, let us know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell, like and share. Check out the website, RevelatorAlf.com. Independence always, brother. Ta-ra.